What is going on, YouTube? Welcome back to Fireside Rangers. I'm your host, Eric Wilson. Today, joined by my co-host, Will Cohen. Today, we're going to be talking about Kaapo Kakko. He's pretty close to returning. Earlier at today's practice, he was a full participant. No more red, no contact jerseys. So sooner rather than later, Kakko is going to be back with the Rangers. The question does remain, though. Where are they going to play him? What is Laviolette going to do with players coming back from injuries, some more players being injured now, people being called up and going down? There's a lot of options here for Kakko, some positives and negatives for pretty much all of them, but I'm sure he will find his place on the lineup, and we're going to give our best take on what that place should be in today's episode. But before we do, make sure you guys like, subscribe, ring that bell so you don't miss notification. If you're watching us on Apple or Spotify, be sure to give us a 5-star review. Leave your thoughts on the topic down in the comments section below. And lastly, be sure to follow us on all of our social media platforms at Fireside Rangers on both Instagram and X. But before we really get into this discussion, Will, how are you doing today, my friend?
Yeah, I feel a lot better now that Kakko is a full participant in practice. I'm going to the game on Saturday. I hope there's a chance he plays then, but I'm not getting my hopes up or anything. But I'm very excited to see him back as a full participant.
Yeah, we'll see. And before we get deep into the Kakko discussion, I do want to take a minute and just talk about the injury and just the speed of his recovery, because he went down at the very end of November. And when he did go down in that game against Buffalo, I immediately thought it was going to be season ending, just the way that his leg kind of rotated 180 degrees. I think most people agreed with me until Laviolette kind of was just like, I'm not going to give you any updates for the next 2 months other than the fact that he's progressing and that it's not season ending. And I had a hard time believing Laviolette just upon reviewing the footage and just the lack of details that were going into it. But then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, he just appears at practice in the no contact jersey. A few days later, he's wearing a yellow jersey, which I guess Laviolette is using as his little intermediate ground where he can fully participate, but just don't touch him. And then all of a sudden today, he's full participant in practice. So just the way that it looked, I don't know if we'll ever get a full diagnosis of what happened to his leg, because to me, he had to have either broken or torn something, but I don't want to speculate on it. I just feel like shout out to Kakko, I guess. It's early January and he's already expected to be playing very, very soon. Hopefully it's this upcoming game or within the next few games, maybe when you're there, Will. But I don't know. Shout out Kakko for that. There's not really much room for discussion on the injury itself. We still don't know the details other than that he has progressed. But I just do want to say, Kaapo Kakko, when you come back, man, we don't know what to do with you, because he started off the season on the first line, playing with Kreider and Zibanejad. Terrible idea. Then he was playing down on the third line. A little bit of a better idea, but still not perfect to me. But I guess we'll take it line by line. Pros and cons to putting him back on the first line. What I'll say is he deserves a second chance. When he was on the first line at the beginning of the year, Kreider and Zibanejad weren't playing good. Both of them were doing great on that first power play unit, but they weren't really giving Kakko any help there. So you can't really go out and criticize Kakko for not performing well on a line that is overall doing terrible. And number two, Blake Wheeler is currently on that first line. Will Cooley did practice there yesterday and today, so maybe we'll see Cooley, but who knows what will happen when Kakko gets back. But if Cooley doesn't work out and Wheeler isn't working out, someone needs to play on that first line. So you might as well give Kakko a shot there. That's my opinion, but I'm curious to know what you think.
I thought that when Kakko played on the first line at the beginning of the season, I think it was for 10 games, I actually really did like it. 93 and 20, they weren't really getting going. Obviously they didn't get going until game, I don't even, maybe game 20 or around there. But now they're going. I think that Kakko being on that line would help out a lot. He would add a defensive part to that line as well that they've kind of been missing with Blake Wheeler, because that guy is just, you watch him play and he's very slow and he does not fit on that line at all. So I'm putting Kakko up on the first line. It wasn't even just this season. Last season, 2093 and 24 also had very good expected goals numbers, and they were generating a lot of offense. And I think when Kakko does come back, that expected will turn into real stuff because of how Kreider and Zibanejad have been playing recently.
Yeah, I mean, you got to see what that line looks like when they're playing at their full potential. People were so quick to blame Kakko for the Rangers' problems, especially on that first line, but Kreider and Zibanejad didn't give him any help. So I would personally love to see him um, to have another shot up there. But at the same time, I understand why people want to say throw him back on that third line because one, the Rangers are most likely going to trade for another winger at the deadline to fill in that first line role. So maybe you want to let Kakko build up some sort of chemistry with Cooley and Bonino at this point, I guess, but eventually Hedel. But which is kind of interesting because now Cooley's practicing on the first line. Whole lineup's a mess right now. But other than that, he just missed the last 2 months with injury, basically. Is he ready to just be thrown right into a top six role on the first line, or do you start him on the third line and let him kind of work his way back up again? You also just look at his offensive stats. Yes, as we just mentioned a few times, they're hard to judge because Kreider and Zibanejad were both not playing well, but still, he only has like 3 points in 20 games played. You at a certain point, the blame that you put on the other two, it can't stretch that far. Kakko on his own needed to have been putting up a little bit more points than that to at least give a full on defense of why he should stay on the first line. So the one area of his game that I think throughout his 20 games played he did excel in was his defense. He was great at controlling the puck. He would enter the offensive zone and would not let go of that puck. He was great just defensively all around. Big guy, strong guy, very good puck control and everything. And I think that skill set in particular would be a better fit on that third line with Cooley, with Bonino / Hedel / Brodzinski / whoever Laviolette puts there whenever. And it's a hard truth to accept, but I think at this point when we drafted Kakko second overall that many years ago and he still hasn't formed into that second overall caliber player, he's going to keep improving throughout his career, but he's never going to reach the expectations that we want. And right now, forcing him onto a first line to hopefully go put up like a 60 or 70 point season, that's not, I mean, not with the injury anymore. It's probably out of the picture, but you know what I'm saying? Like we're trying to force him to break out and it's not really happening. He's playing really good defense and good physical hockey. So you might as well let him do that on the third line. So that's why I'm kind of like in the middle on it. I see pros and cons to both, but would you be open to Kakko on the third line, or are you saying first line only?
I mean, I'd be open to Kakko on that third line, but you're not really gonna get out as much. You're not gonna want to get what you want from him with Bonino centering him. I mean, if it was Hedel, I would say it's a completely different story. But that's why I think he's sticking back on the first line because he'll have, I think he will produce some points. I don't know if it's going to be like probably not going to shoot out of a cannon scoring every single game. He's probably not going to do that anyway if he was fully healthy. But I don't know. I think what that first line needs is a guy like Kaapo Kakko. And that's why I think you got to put him back on that first line. I mean, depends on how Cooley does. If Cooley's playing really well with that first line, then you can say, okay, first couple games, let's ease him back on the third line, see how he does, and then gradually move him back up to the first line, give him some more minutes, and then finally stick him permanently back on that first line role.
Yeah, I mean, because that's the thing. We know that Kakko is a very impactful player on the Rangers. Even though he doesn't put up a lot of points, we got the stats right here. The Rangers with Kaapo Kakko, 15-3-1. Pretty insane record right there. Rangers without Kakko, 10-7. So as soon as he was removed from the lineup, that decline that we've been seeing defensively in particular has just really become a major issue. And I think Kakko is going to have an immediate impact when he comes back. But the question at hand is how much of an impact, because he has missed the last 2 months, not exactly 2 months, but close to it. And while I would love to see him be thrown back onto that first line for another shot at it, I think it needs to be that slow buildup. Start him on the third. I mean, but who knows? We're not in the locker room. We're not behind the bench. Laviolette, he's going to know what the best choice is. If he thinks Kakko is going to be ready to get things going right away, 1st line start. But if he's maybe not 100%, and he thinks Kakko is going to be ready to get things going right away, 1st line start. But if he's maybe not 100%, and he thinks Kakko is going to be ready to get things going right away, 1st line start. But if he's maybe not 100%, and he thinks Kakko is going to be ready to get things going right away, 1st line start. But possibly starting him on the third line. I mean, how much of an impact do you think the lingering injury might have on his positioning here?
I think it really depends, like, what happened, because, like we said, I thought it was an ACL tear. I thought it was done as soon as I saw it. I mean, he looked like he was in pain, which I don't know how he's coming back from this quickly. Um, I mean, I feel like Fox kinda had, like, this he had a knee injury as well, and he's still getting, it's still affecting his game. So I think that the knee injury will have a good effect on his game for a while. So, I mean, if that's the case, then I guess you do have to put him on a third line role, because you can't have him going out there and kind of dragging that first line down, because he's not able to do everything at at his full potential. But also you could kind of give him sheltered minutes, just ease him back into that first line role, kind of have him and Cooley getting split, if they keep Cooley up on that first line. So I think that he will have lingering effects with this injury.
Yeah, I mean, there was a point in time when Othman was still called up to the Rangers because the Rangers just gave up on Othman, I guess, where I would have been okay with maybe even starting Kakko for a few games down with Hartford, and not because of his skill and how bad he is, but just letting him get used to playing hockey again after missing it for so long. If assuming Othman was playing good and just giving the top prospect a little bit more time and maybe like 2 or 3 more games up in the big leagues, but now and all of a sudden it's Jake Leschyshyn. So I don't really want him on the team for too long. Let's get Kakko right back up into the lineup. But last thing I kind of want to discuss, like before we start to wrap things up, is like kind of the overall impact of a Kakko return, because we know the Rangers, they're going to make a trade at the deadline, which at this point is less than 2 months away. And, the right wing was one spot that the Rangers really needed some more pieces in. And I think even with Kakko coming back, they still do, because, you're going to have Lafreniere. He's playing insane. Second line, not being moved. Pitlick is out week to week. Kakko's just coming back. Wheeler, not good. That's all I'm going to say before I go on a little tangent about him. So there's more pieces to be needed. So, if you put Kakko on that first line and he's playing really well and he might be the answer to that problem, that entirely changes the direction that the Rangers need to approach this trade and go for a bottom 6 type of player. So I think the Rangers are going to need to figure it out really quickly, because then if you put Kakko down on the third line and that works out, now you need to go for a top 6 goal scoring type of guy like Tarasenko or Vetrano. So I think it is going to have a pretty large impact here, money wise as well. Him getting taken off of the IR takes away a lot more cap here, but maybe even Kakko could be packaged in a part of a trade. I know that's immediately going to piss off half the people watching this video, and including you probably will, but let's just say there's a world out there where Kakko comes back and he's playing really terrible, needs maybe like he's healthy enough to play, but needs a little bit more time to figure out his game, and the Rangers need to win now. Maybe the Rangers package him up and trade for a player who's already healthy and developed, and turn for a team that's looking for a potential breakout from Kakko next season when he's healthy. I don't know. Like, I wouldn't be in favor of that. I do want to say, like, I want to keep Kakko. I love Kakko, but there's just so many different like outcomes that can come from this. And just this one player is going to kind of determine a lot of different things on how the rest of the season goes, depending on how Laviolette and Chris Drury approach it. So I don't know. I listed a few options there. How big of an impact do you think this is going to have? And I'm curious to know your thoughts on the trade, because once again, I'm going to say I don't want to trade Kakko before you all come for me in the comments. But yeah, that's
I've seen a lot of rumors around Trevor Zegras now that Jamie Drysdale is gone. I think that he is now on the trading block, and I've seen a lot of Rangers fans take I know they liked him because he's a Long Island boy. Could they trade, Kakko plus for Trevor Zegras? Who knows? I mean, I don't know if it's going to work under the the cap situation. I don't think that's where the Rangers want to go, because I mean, as Trevor Zegras, he's good, but is he what the Rangers really need? I don't think so. But I think I think even with Kakko coming back, they will still try and trade for a winger. I don't know if it's going to be a first line winger because maybe Kakko comes back and gives them the results that they need. I really have no clue, but they still also need a third line center depending on when Hedl comes back. So there's a lot that the Rangers could do. And it really just depends if they do make a trade for a right winger, how Kakko does. So I don't know. But yeah, I guess this is pretty important for him. I guess it is pretty important for him coming back for the Rangers to see what they have to do at the trade deadline, because this is an important deadline. I mean, you have your best team in recent years, and I mean, you have to win a Stanley Cup at some point, and this is probably your best shot at doing so.
Yeah, I agree. And you mentioned Trevor Zegras, and maybe we'll do an episode on him, like a potential mock trade breakdown or something. But I did see a tweet earlier, or I guess an X post. Was that what you would call it now? I don't even know.
I still call it Twitter. I can't call it X.
Yeah, it's Twitter, but I say X for professionalism. But I saw a tweet earlier that said Trevor Zegras is now potentially on the trade block. This is nothing against Philip Hedl and his abilities, but there's no reason why he shouldn't be in the discussion for potential Hedl for Zegras trade. Maybe he could be the third line center. I don't know. Conversation for another time. This conversation is about Kaapo Kakko. He'll be back soon enough. He's day to day at this point. I wouldn't be shocked. I mean, I would be a little surprised if we saw him play tomorrow. I think we play right against St. Louis.
Against Blues.
So probably not then, but maybe on Saturday when you're at the game. I wouldn't be shocked if that were to happen, but it'll be interesting to see where he plays. I'm sure as the days go by and he's getting more situated in practice, we'll see that new lineup start to form. It's either going to be the first or the third line. He's not going on the second or the fourth. I think that's pretty clear. But let us know your thoughts down in the comment section below. If you were Peter Laviolette, where do you place Kaapo Kakko, and how do you utilize him as an offensive potential breakout player, or just really focus and honing in on that defense? Let us know, because we just broke down our opinions and we like to hear your thoughts. But make sure you guys like, subscribe, ring that bell so you don't miss a notification. If you're watching us on Apple or Spotify, be sure to give us a 5-star review. And lastly, be sure to follow us on all of our social media platforms at Fireside Rangers on Instagram and Twitter. I'm going to say Twitter this time because we've agreed that Elon can just hold that. But thank you all for watching. We'll be back tomorrow with more Rangers content. Have a good one. And
let's go Rangers.